So, welcome today, Matthias, Lucas, and Anders.
Thank you.
Really nice that you wanted to be part of the Ocean Opportunity Program this week for Oslo Innovation Week. You guys are all working on two different solutions in very different ways, addressing the health of the ocean and the life below sea. And so I was kind of curious, can you first of all tell us a bit about your kind of, your path, your work, like which problem or gap is it that you at some point identified that made you want to become an entrepreneur? And I think we'll start with you, Anders.
Yes, well, I myself have always been very happy about being around the water, sailing and playing in the water all my life, and seeing how it has deteriorated around the world, and that aspect of environmental impact has been the one that has been close to my heart, which has been a big reason for me to work against a better environment in the ocean. Yeah.
And Lucas, what's your story?
Well, like Anders, I have an attraction to the water. In my earlier life, I was a beach lifeguard for 3 years, so kind of saw a direct impact of everything while I was on the beach. But I think everyone can see over the years that the oceans are becoming more and more damaged or at risk, and I felt that I need to do something about it. So that's where we got to today, really.
Yeah. And Matthias, you ended up north all the way from Germany. How did you get this passion and deciding to jump ships, basically?
Well, it's a very similar story to the other two people, because it's I've always been connected to the ocean by sailing, sailing license. I've been sailing in different areas around the world, and I always felt that the ocean gave me this kind of, it was almost a meditative effect every time I was on the ocean or close to the ocean. And then after quitting my job in Germany at Porsche, I felt like, okay, let's do something for the ocean that so many people around the world love. And so I ended up with an NGO collecting plastic on a sailboat in the north of Norway. And then I realized that there's kind of a lack of help, that we build an industry around saving the ocean, and that kind of combined the passion I had about the ocean and saving what I love so much into what I'm doing now. And I think that's a good description of where we all come from in a way.
Yeah. And this is also interesting, because one thing here is your personal story and what drives you purpose-wise, but you also come from very different industrial backgrounds. Matthias, you're German and you come from the automotive and digital world. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of your background and how it represents either a strength or some challenges linked to now being an ocean entrepreneur?
No, I started out as this typical business guy out of business school, went into management consulting for a couple of years, then ended up in the automotive industry at Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. And obviously it was a fun thing to do. I learned a lot. It really gave me a lot of these kind of techniques you have to have if you want to, from my perspective, also succeed as an entrepreneur, because you need to pitch it, you need to present, you need to do all these concepts in your head that you built. So I would say it prepared me quite well for doing something like this, even though I always felt that the topic I was working for with these skills was not the right. So when I was at in automotive, yes, of course, cars are a nice product. They look nice. Porsche is exceptionally designed. It's a crazy thing. But I always had this thing in my head, is like, okay, but well, that doesn't really fit with my values. We all know climate change, and everybody's driving around with Porsches. How is that connected? And so I would say, I think what I really learned is that if you really want to excel, you need to do something where you have a passion for. and then use the skills that I learned before. So I don't say that the 9 years I worked before in all these corporates was for nothing. I think it was a great learning experience that I now want to use to do something good with it. Or not good, I mean, also, you know, mobility is also a good topic, but something that connects more with my values. And I think that's where this gap is bridged. And I think that's very helpful.
Yeah. And I've focused a lot over the years to bring in new talents from other industries to rethink the way that we're doing ocean industries. But so these are kind of the strength parts that you have with you. But what about the challenges? What are the specific typical challenges when you come in as a kind of outsider in a quite somewhat secluded, closed ocean industry community? What has been like the key bottlenecks for you to enter in here?
Well, as I said, I moved to a complete new country, and even though I have been living abroad for quite a while in other countries, the US and England, but Norway is a bit more secluded, I would say. You can feel this in different areas of Norway, that, you know, Norway is quite closed. Especially also in business terms. So, you know, getting the context that you need, building up the network was obviously something I had to, you know, start with from the beginning. And that is something that takes a lot of energy, and you sometimes don't know where to start, even though the ocean space is quite small. I realized that at some point, you know, everybody knows each other, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I have to talk to this person or this person. I was like, yeah, I have. It's quite interesting how quickly you build this up, but the wedge into this network is difficult because obviously my network in the automotive industry in Germany was very well developed, but I had to step out of this comfort zone and first build this up again, and, you know, also become somebody that knows somebody in the network.
Yeah, good points. And Anders and Lucas, you also, I mean, you come from different countries and you also come from completely different backgrounds. Anders, you come from the offshore industry and you're still working a lot of your time on rigs. Lucas, you have a background from industrial design. So would you like to fill us in the same manner that Matthias did now, ref to, you know, the strengths, the challenges, and starting with you, Lucas?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I started my studies in industrial design, specifically transport design. I've always been making things and inventions and all sorts of crazy inventions. Big book of business ideas over the years, and I kind of decided at some stage that I would focus more on the environment and doing good for the planet. Much like Matthias, you know, the car industry isn't specifically sustainable, or you would say, or very good for the planet. So I felt like a change. So I changed to business specifically to look at startups and developing new ideas. And I ended up in an extreme sports world because my degree specialized in that at the end. So I ended up with an extreme sports video production company, traveling the world, filming in extreme environments, which was amazing. But you can see the weather changes, obviously, over those years and me growing up. And my interests were still very much in the sustainability areas of business. So I felt like another change to delve into that big book of business ideas. And then it was in a hydroponics company for a year. And then a lot of that information was relevant for seaweed. And then me and Anders found each other, I mean, a year and a half ago. And started this company.
And Anders, your story. So you come from the oil side of it, and you now work with environmental solutions.
Exactly. So algae and seaweed is literally a couple of million-year-old oils, or oil just a million-year-old from seaweed. With the technical industry of electrical engineering in the backhand, there's a lot of steps that have led towards the development of the big offshore industry. Bringing it back to your background, Matthias and Lucas, about the automotive, you can say that Henry Ford was the one that developed or made the car. But then again, to where the Porsche is now, there's quite a lot of engineers who's been in the process of development. And within the sustainable algae industry that we're now looking into, it hasn't really been developed a lot. So with the background that I come from, I can see that there's a lot of solutions of already existing technology and ingenuity that can be brought into this industry, which hasn't really been developed at all. That's one of the bigger bonuses that we have within our team. We have another electrical automation engineer who helps on this task of developing the biofiltration automation part of using algae to filter out and cultivate algae.
But I think it's very helpful to come from different backgrounds for a new perspective. If you're in an industry for too long, I think you get a little bit stale. So coming from completely different backgrounds, new ideas, fresh right off the bat. But I mean, that introduces challenges as well, because you have to learn a whole new industry. Like Matthias said, connections alone are difficult, but also when you find those connections, to be able to talk to those people, the biologists, the ecologists, the engineers, to speak their language has been a steep learning curve, but a fun one.
Yeah, it's a whole new ball game, but then going into that field with a different background and not speaking their language as well means that we're not walking their lines of attacking a problem. They all, or not all of them necessarily, but they mostly have educational line of going into a biologist study, and we have a very different way of going into that industry, giving us a different perspective and an angle into the industry, which I think is a very positive thing to develop the industry further.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. And I love the fact that all of you guys, you come in with heavy industrial background from different countries and different industries. And then you choose to use all of those years of experience and competence to do something that is building the future of the ocean space. And before moving into what it is that you guys are actually doing during your work days, what is it that you see as the key opportunities for the ocean industries, and kind of on your role in that? So the opportunities that personally resonates more with you, and also how you see it now after being into the industries for quite a while now, where you see the biggest gaps, the areas that are really now ripe for cross-fertilizing entrepreneurs like you and the established industry players.
Should I take this one, or yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm a bit biased I think we all are a bit biased because we are in the seaweed industry. But I think the ocean industries have a massive opportunity to be part of this sustainable future. I think the ocean is currently, for example, I think we only use 5% of the ocean for kind of harvesting, and we know that the population will grow and there is a need for sustainable protein. So I think the biggest opportunity, and there are many others, but this one is one where all the check marks are ticked. It's a sustainable way of feeding people around the world. It is cleaning the ocean, it is sequestering CO2, etc. So the biggest opportunity from my perspective is that the ocean can become a major player in becoming a sustainable industry. and then obviously that has different fields, hydrogen engines for ships. But from my perspective, this is the biggest opportunity in general for the ocean, becoming a forerunner of sustainability. Whereas maybe land-based farming or land-based industries often struggle with that. And the things that you see in the ocean is just automatically, in a way, like seaweed, something where all the ticks, all the check marks, and that is something where I see the biggest opportunity for the ocean.
Unless we also industrialize the ocean bed and the ocean space in the same way that we have done on the land, with the kind of exploiting perspective instead of regenerating.
Yeah, but this is also an opportunity. I completely agree. We should not do the same mistakes again. Also, seaweed farm you can do so at a scale that is so unhealthy for the ocean. There's still some research to be done. It could happen that big seaweed farms will decrease the light that comes through the ocean, and then it will harm other animals in the ocean. So we should not do the same mistakes again. But since we are only starting a completely new business, now we have the big opportunity in the ocean industry to build the ocean industry in a sustainable way from the start. And I think that's where, because you asked about opportunity, I think that is the biggest opportunity. We have a chance to build a sustainable industry, whereas at some point on landfill industries, it's not greenfield anymore. It's more brownfield approaches. Yeah.
Because this is, of course, a huge dilemma that we face in this time of our history, that we need to live from the ocean. But if we do it in the way that we have done on land, we will just exploit it to the point where we eradicate the resources that we do need to stay alive and for our communities to stay full and happy and nurtured. And Anders, what is your approach on this? I mean, you are, yes, in the same part of the industry, but with different goggles, I think, different perspectives. So what do you see as the key specific opportunities from your side?
Well, there's one aspect of ocean that I think we should remember, and that is that the ocean is the bigger part of the earth. So in itself, using the resources from the ocean and developing ocean industry should be a higher priority than it is today for all global countries and countries with shorelines. There are a lot of problems in developing it, because of course it's very hard winds
the conditions,
and the conditions are incredible harsh to handle, which from where I work in the North Sea, I can personally see very hands-on, where you regularly have 6-meter waves and heavy storms, and of course having any sort of infrastructure there is very hard. But we do see a development in RUVs and autonomous robots that allow for harvesting or monitoring industry. Both in the oil fields, we see subsea solutions taking place. But it's important to not exploit, as Matthias says. We have per today exploited quite a lot of our fishery resources. So there's definitely room to take a step back from what is being done today and look for new solutions of how to do things better. But the vast areas available, which now we see wind turbine or wind parks coming up. There's projects now with combining the wind parks with seaweed farms around them, which then again works as wave breakers, which make it a better stable solution for the wind parks to be in. So like a combination of all the possibilities in the ocean is something that we have to dig deeper into.
So here you actually touch into the whole idea of rethinking how we do our business and how we conduct our establishing of new solutions in a more kind of ecosystem way of thinking. And Lucas, what about from your side? Of course, Anders has like the offshore perspective, which is amazing. And I think especially coming like from the oil and offshore country of Norway, there are so many strengths that we can build on in this period. But Lucas, what's your kind of key?
I mean, from a design perspective, I wouldn't say there's a lot of opportunities in terms of a new industry popping up, especially for the Western world with seaweed, that you can start from fresh and from the beginning look at all the aspects that the damages that you might do, or the risks that you're going to take, or the specific problems that you're trying to address. And that you can, like you said, build a kind of an ecosystem, an integrated system that each step addresses part of the cycle. So you start making circular systems that we hope won't cause any more damage and create a sustainable solution for the ocean. I mean, the ocean's got a huge potential and potentially untapped potential. I mean, if you specifically look at seaweeds, looking at their components and what they can do for health, for example, we're still making huge breakthroughs, and one day it could be, for example, the cure for cancer. And I just find it amazing to think that we all came from the ocean to start with, and now we're looking at the ocean to potentially fix what we've created. And it's a huge opportunity that we could fix the world.
Contribute, fixing.
Yeah, contribution, that's the thing, I think. I mean, this is such a big job ahead of us that we all need to really contribute. And I mean, when I invited you into this conversation, most of the time when we hear startups talk in front of audiences, it's very much pitch oriented. I wanted to kind of turn it the other way and get to know you guys and your stories and where you came from, both work-wise and from the emotional and kind of purpose part of it. But of course, we would also love to hear a little bit more in depth about what is it that you actually do. So I'll throw the ball back to Matthias. Matthias, what is it that you are trying to solve? What are you building with your colleagues?
Well, we are trying to build a system that allows ecosystem services, so a positive impact on the ocean, to be part of our economy. So we believe that ecosystem services, like for example seaweed, nitrate, phosphor uptake out of the ocean, should be a payable service for companies that provide this service. And nowadays it is not. Nowadays they are being paid for the product, like seaweed that is being used for food. But we think that this service they produce to the ecosystem should be paid by somebody, for example, that has a negative impact. And our solution is called Blue Seas, and we're trying to facilitate the market between these two players. So the ocean protectors and what we call a bit the ocean polluters. Obviously, it's a bit negative. They're not, it's not, we try not to call them polluters, but in the end, they are putting nitrate and phosphate, for example, in the ocean, like salmon farms, for example. And we're trying to create this new market that is not existing right now. By facilitating this. For that, we need to quantify, obviously, the ecosystem services. We need to certify it, and then we need to sell it via a marketplace that makes it easy for both players to find each other. And that is what we're trying to build. So in a way, a bit of an Airbnb model, obviously, from a business perspective, but it really tries to, help getting an ecosystem service part of a business model rather than just an add-on.
So you are coming in and really reusing and repurposing your background working on digital products for the Daimler Group and Porsche to support the ocean ecosystem. I think that's quite cool. So Anders and Lucas, I don't know who of you would like to start introducing your company, but please share.
Yeah, so Seeds of Norway was set up to address the specific problems that Matthias was just talking about. So we have nitrate and phosphorus emissions coming from various industries. And more specifically in Norway, we have a huge fish farming industry and aquaculture in general, which produce a lot of fertilizer for seaweeds, as you could look at it. So we decided to start looking at biofiltration technologies using seaweed specifically, and different types of seaweeds, and more integrated systems that work with infrastructure that already exists. Yeah, we've been working on this concept for a year that integrates with the fish farms, the net systems, and we think we can make a positive change for them to be more sustainable. Not to say that they aren't right now, but everyone's looking to be more sustainable, to expand in the future, and go into the future positively, I guess.
We've been developing, or first of all, we dug into the algae, the whole algae process of how it's done today, who does what, and then we've further seen what can we do differently to make it a step further than what's been done today. It's a very labor intensive work, and so we've come up with a solution now that is to be both possible to be integrated with the new RAS systems that are salmon farms on land, but also to be integrated within the, as Luca said, fish pen systems that are in the ocean, allowing for a cleaner fjord. There's not always a lot of flow through in the fjords, so it will only be a beneficial effect to have them with the fish, and you get a double side of the effect, like a double-sided sword, you can say, because it's the effect of cleaning, but at the same time we have a protein-rich product out of it. So we will then not compete, for land-based protein from soy or corn or whatnot you would be producing this from, which then again could be fed to fish, but also human or used in other products. There's a lot of other positive things you can get out of the algae, polysaccharides that have different benefits. So the next stages will be the refinement part of it, but first off, now we're working on our prototypes of the fish pen filtration, which we hope to have finished at around Christmas. It'd be a good Christmas present for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And so speaking of Christmas presents or presents in general, I mean, I've known you guys, Olivia, for a while now through Tool. And of course, starting up companies means that you have to get everything done with very scarce resources, and you need to get a lot of things done at the same time. What is it that at the current stage that you are in now, what are like the key resources that you really need to get to the next level, and to pick up speed building your companies? Matthias, first to you.
Well, I mean, like, I have a list of 20 I can just give you now, but I think I would just maybe pick out the most important one right now. I think what for us, because we're trying to create a completely new marketplace that haven't existed before. So obviously we need to, a marketplace consists always of two sides. You know, we have the supply and the demand side. And, obviously, we don't really have an issue on the supply side from seaweed companies, because obviously we're giving them an additional revenue on top of a product that they're already selling. So the seaweed companies are super happy about it. They're all like, yeah, of course we want to be on the platform. But what we are actually obviously need to build up a marketplace only works if the both sides are leveled. or at least there's maybe even a bit more demand than the supply side. So what we really need is, or the challenges we have is connections to the demand side. Because obviously it's a voluntary market. For example, let's take a salmon farm. They're not being forced by any regulation to buy any kind of ecosystem service. It all is voluntarily right now. We can feel also from the salmon farms we have been talking to that they have a strong desire to be more sustainable. They feel this as a part of their strategy. But still, obviously, it is not a regulation. So we need contacts and to build this trust on the demand side, that they understand this market, that they understand the value of this, and that they want to participate. And for that, we need to get access to these kind of players. And the big corporates or the big fish companies or the big aquaculture and companies are quite difficult to get in touch with, because they are so big corporations. And that is our biggest challenge right now. And as I said in the beginning, getting into the network is a challenge, especially as a non-Norwegian. Calling a very Norwegian salmon farm in the north of Norway can be quite challenging if you speak English. Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest challenges for us now, because we have to level this two-sided marketplace quite well.
So let's see how we can use this session to send out a good challenge to the fish farming industry of Norway. I think that's a fair challenge to share from Oslo Innovation Week. Yeah. Anders and Lucas, what is it that you need at the current stage?
Well, there's a couple of points. Of course, delivery is the one that we're sitting on right now. We're waiting for packages in order to build what we're going to build. I mean, Corona has been a small hiccup, but I mean, that's not something that you can pinpoint on a specific person or a big problem. But working with ocean, a big problem is that everything has to be designed to be able to withstand the ocean. That being corrosion, that being the force of waves, and adding to the northern atmosphere of colds is a bit of a challenge. But yeah, it's something that has to be, every material that is used has to be next grade higher in quality. That's the general challenge, I would say, that I'm sitting on right now.
I think Anders is getting at the point of ocean technology costs a lot of money, and I think all startups to do with the ocean and trying to make a sustainable future or systems do require money, and unfortunately it's usually more than a tech company, a startup for an app, for example. So we always need more money or more investors or more interest in ocean sustainability. There can't be too much. But also what Matthias said, if you start to look at regulations for the future, it would be nice to have a bit more interest in what the fish farms can do or what they're willing to do, and how the regulations could shift towards that. Not to burden them. Like, I don't want to put huge regulations that impact them negatively, but it's trying to find a happy medium where they see value in an environmental service, and not just look at potential profits from the fish, because I know that currently the value chain is quite early in its development, especially with seaweed, and therefore the value really isn't the same as fish. But there's different value in it, and I think to highlight the difference and the positives, so that they are encouraged to adopt more environmental services or our environmental approach is always a good thing.
And I mean, also this represents a huge opportunity for the fish farming companies to also diversify their bottom line, because they are also very exposed if the fish stocks are reduced, or if there are huge health issues, etc., of course they are very exposed. So if you have a broader kind of more ecosystem-based way of utilizing their operations so that you can actually get more resources out of that one operation, that's I would say it's a kind of an easy win-win if you have the right mindset.
And maybe if I can add something to that specifically, because I completely agree. We pitch it to the salmon companies in a way that we say, we try to help you secure your future growth predictions, because we believe that at some point, there will be some kind of regulation maybe even in place. Denmark, for example, has a regulation where aquaculture companies have to make sure that what they put into the ocean has to become out of the ocean again, for example, by growing mussels. And it is just a question of time. So salmon, we are not trying to attack salmon, or we are trying to shame them or blame them for anything. It's more like we're trying to build a solution that helps them to be already sustainable now, to start building their growth strategy on this. That is kind of the strategy we're trying to pitch.
Yeah, and I would actually say that these solutions are more about actually enabling them based from more, traditional and long-term operations that they've done, enabling them to hit the next curve. Because we all know the way that our world is going, and it's going faster in some areas, slower in some areas. But I think also now COVID and the lockdown period has really shown us that now a lot of governments, and especially in the European Union, are really now pushing the green train. So now, if you're going to make a profit in the future, you can't risk to let these kind of opportunities drop.
The fishing industry has already been very, very innovative in the way they have been developing themselves by using bigger parts of the fish, and that has been a huge advantage for their being now making fish meal or fish oil from parts that they earlier would just throw away. So it's they certainly are looking to the future and for ways of utilizing the resources in a better solution as it is per now. So I think going forwards with both seaweed and other industries, the fish industry are very open to acknowledge or bring on board this ecosystem that Matthias is building up here.
We have to round off because we also have a lot of other people from the Tool Network on the agenda this week. But thank you so much, guys, for joining. And for you guys who are watching, you can also visit their booths in the aquarium next to the stage. And this is open 365 days a year, so that the ocean entrepreneurs and innovators can actually be visible regardless of a COVID lockdown or any other factors. So thank you so much, guys, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.